who is recognized for her way of sharing knowledge and her expertise on the subject of Hindu Marriage Act 1955 is always well received. And on our platform, she has come for the first time, but a subject which we all normally commonly discuss, not only as lawyers, but even in the society, friends, relatives, and neighbors do contact. And respect of, we have taken one particular facet under Section 13, those who are from the legal fraternity, as the cruelty as a ground for divorce. We all know that in terms of the legal parlance, that physical and mental cruelties are defined as such, including the desertion by the spouse. And without taking much time, I would request Advocate Parvathi Menon to take us to the legal journey along with her PowerPoint program. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Namaste and good evening to all. Most of you must not be familiar with me. I'm Advocate Parvathi Menon. I'm practicing in the High Court of Kerala. And when Vikas ji had called me and asked me to take a class, there were many subjects that were given to me to be chosen. I chose this subject because one aspect which as a practicing lawyer I came across was during the pandemic period. Now, since March 2020, there have been an immense increase in the number of matrimonial issues. I presume all over the country, but at least in Kerala, there has been a rise in matrimonial issues. And that too, the irony is that is a time, a lockdown time is a time when we all expected to have family reunions because you have the working parents at home. The children are also at home because they're not in a position to attend classes physically. Most of the parents had classes, had to do work from home. So we were all under the impression that it's more of a family reunion time, but unfortunately for many, it has created a lot of issues, perhaps because of the financial insecurity faced by the family, or perhaps the bad quality time that is being spent between the spouses. And there has been a considerable increase in not only in the matrimonial issues, but also in cases of sexual abuse as well. So perhaps that is one reason why of late I have had to handle a lot of issues relating to matrimonial disputes. I chose this subject, cruelty, to be presented before you. Now, if we go straight to the provisions or to the legal aspects, as we all know, marriages is a matter of celebration. Actually, in Kerala, we have very short celebrations, but I understand in North India, most of you have celebrations for almost a week. But now I think in some parts in Kerala, they also follow a lot of festivity in marriages. But unfortunately, in most of the marriages, what we find is it's either incompatibility between the spouses, or it can be cruelty that has been meted out between the spouses. It might not be just between the spouses, but between the families as well. But when the matter reaches a state or a stage where the families have taken over this issue, it becomes a lot of ego clash in it. Then there is a lot of bad blood created, ending up in marriages, getting the marriages to be ended in divorce. Now, the subject that has been assigned to me today is cruelty under Hindu Marriage Act. As we know, it's under Section 13(1)(1)(a), states about cruelty as a ground for divorce. Now, this is a sort of definition that I have placed before you all. This cruelty, which is a ground for dissolution of marriage, deemed as willful and unjustifiable conduct of such character as to cause danger to life, limb, or health, bodily or mental, or as to give rise to reasonable apprehension of such a danger. The question of mental cruelty has to be considered in the light of the norms of marital ties in the particular society to which the parties belong, their social status, environment in which they live. Let me give you a small introduction. Now, cruelty is a very subjective term. And as all of you know, cruelty is it can be either physical or it can be mental. Now, when it comes to physical cruelty, there is nothing much for us to, it's more easier for us to prove. Or rather, as long as there are specific pleadings of certain incidents with dates in a petition for divorce on the grounds of physical cruelty, along with certain documents that can prove that this wife or man, can be a case where men have also been subjected to physical cruelty by certain women. Whatever be it, now this physical cruelty is something which can be proved with the help of documents or whatever marks on the body. At least there will be something tangible for the parties to prove before the court. But when it comes to mental cruelty, it's a subjective term. It's a subjective term to the extent what is cruel to me need not be cruel to you. I might get hurt at the drop of a hat, but it need not be the very same case for many others. For example, I'm married. I go along with my husband's family to some relative's place. There is a comment about my hair or my looks or my complexion, something very personal. If I am a person who is not very much bothered or concerned about it, I might take it very lightly, or perhaps I might just give an answer back and then that's the end of it. But if I am a very sensitive person, I might not be very happy about it. My expressions might show that I'm not very happy about the situation, but then I would wait. Let me see how things would be. If I'm oversensitive, perhaps immediately I might react, and my reaction would be taken by my husband or my husband's family as she's being impertinent. She just walked into the family, and is this the way she should treat elders in the family? Forgetting the fact that they have made a comment about her personality, or it's a personal comment. Now, that is why I said it depends on how you take it. Now, all of you must have seen the movie Thappad. I think there's a lot of mixed reactions to that movie. In that movie, there is only one instance where the husband slaps the woman, slaps the wife. Everybody except her father and her lawyer, of course, including her mother, they all try to make her understand that she should forgive about this, or she should not make a big issue about this. And then she should get back to the family for the sake of children, for the sake of the family's prestige and things like that. But she stood by what she felt. She felt that it was her self-respect that was affected by just one slap in front of people, even if it was privately also. With her kind of nature, she would not have taken it. Now, what she felt was there was no occasion. Of course, the husband at many scenes, one can see that the husband had come forward to tell her how important she is in his life and how she should come back to the family, and how it is important for their would-be born child and all that. But there is no occasion when the man apologizes to her for what has been done to her. So that is perhaps one reason why she chooses to keep away from the family life, and she chooses to go for a divorce. Now, that is why I said cruelty is something, mental cruelty is something, or that was a case of physical cruelty as well, but that was only one instance. Still, that lady in that movie, that hero in that movie, she saw to it that she took a stern stand that she would walk out of the family. So this is a very relative term. It's a very subjective term. And therefore, there is absolutely no definition as such for cruelty in the statute, but it's a developing jurisprudence. The courts of law, as we all know, the courts of law, whatever law that has been laid down by the Supreme Court and the high courts, are considered to be loss of land. Therefore, whatever in certain circumstances and situations, the law of whatever the courts feel should be considered as cruelty have developed as a jurisprudence in this area of divorce, in this area of law. That is how cruelty. If one goes through the different judgments, right from earlier 1975 onwards, I have quoted certain judgments here. Right from the beginning, from 1975 onwards, if you go through it, one can find that the evolution of jurisprudence, as much as the society wants a change in it. So there is a big, huge transition in the attitude of women as well as men nowadays. One might say, a woman, a conventional, or coming from a very orthodox background, people might say, we can hear people say, nowadays the girls are not tolerant. It's not a matter of tolerance. It's a matter of self-respect, that you are able to feel you are no longer nobody's property. You're not a chattel. You are an individual of your own. So anything that happens to you, you are individually responsible. You should be individually responsible enough to take a call on it. That is how that concept of cruelty has changed over the years in the society, and in turn by the courts of law as well. Now, I'm reiterating that particular section 13(1)(1)(a) of Hindu Marriage Act. Any marriage solemnized, whether before or after the commencement of this act, may on a petition presented by either the husband or the wife, dissolved by a decree of divorce on the ground that the other party has, after the solemnization of the marriage, treated the petitioner with cruelty. Now, initially, when Section 13 was there in the statute as early as 1955, we all know that Hindu Marriage Act was initiated, or rather, it came into force in 1955. Initially, the ground of cruelty was not a ground for divorce. See, that's how the change comes. Initially, a husband treating a wife cruelly, mentally, emotionally badly, was not considered to be a ground for divorce at all. A woman was expected to take whatever nonsense that is happening to her. However emotionally she is abused, she gets used to an emotionally abusive marriage. For that matter, men also. I mean, I'm not taking stance as such. There are cases where there are women who emotionally abuses men by seeing to it that he gets himself separated from his own family. He sees there are women who sees to it that that the men do not maintain good relationship with their own family, because they call themselves being possessive. But in that process, what happens is the man is caught between his own family and his wife. Of course, he would not be wanting to leave his wife and children and go away. But these kind of emotional pressure that is excised on men also amounts to cruelty. So, but initially, as I said earlier, in 1955, when this act was enacted, the ground of cruelty was not there for divorce. But subsequently, Uttar Pradesh, the legislature of Uttar Pradesh wished to include cruelty also as a ground for divorce. And it was only in 1976 that Section 13 was amended and ground for divorce was added. That is why it is Section 13(1), subclause 1A. Okay, so it's only from 1976 onwards that we have cruelty as a ground for divorce. And from then onwards, we can see how the jurisprudence regarding this particular area of law has changed, that along with the change in attitude of the society. Now, as I earlier pointed out, we can have this physical and mental. We have physical and mental cruelty, which that can be brought before the court of law. Physical cruelty, as I said, it can be, to a situation where you feel it is not safe to live with this person, that you are being beaten up, that you are being emotional. There are men who are. For that matter, when I say, normally when cruelty, everybody feels marital cruelty, it's applicable only to women. But it's not like that also. But physical cruelty, we find men doing more of physical cruelty on women, perhaps because of their, because they are gender, sexually, biologically, they are more stronger than women. And you find women being submissive to being burnt with cigarette stubs, to being beaten up harshly. Recently, there was a case. I'm sure it had a lot of national attention. That particular case, it received a lot of national attention. It was a case where a woman, a wife, who was married only for the past, I think, 2-3 years, she was murdered by her husband using snake. The girl, she was slightly challenged. She had a slight handicap. She was a slightly handicapped girl, but she got married. The husband fully knew about her handicap and then got married to her, and they have a child also, a small child also. And this girl comes from a reasonably affluent family, and the husband had been seeking for more dowry and things like that. And of course, he knows that whatever he does to this girl, she was emotionally very submissive to this man. So he knew that it was very easy for him to manipulate this girl, or rather, get her to do things. And in the process, what happened was, he initially first tried to get her bitten by a cobra. It so happened that she had to be taken to the hospital, but she revived. And then she got back home. And in his second attempt, he saw to it that he got a viper to bite her. And this time she succumbed to the poisoning. And then initially everybody thought it was a case of, it was an accidental snake bite. But the investigating officer was too smart. He saw to it, during the investigation, he came to know that a snake handler was involved in this matter. And with the help of this man's, his forensic investigations, with the phone of the accused was traced, and the mobile phone was traced, and with all kind of calls and things which he made to a snake handler. The snake handler was also arrested. He later became an approver. It was proved that this lady was meted out with a lot kind of physical cruelty, but it so happened that she never divulged many of these issues to her parents. And ultimately she had to succumb to the cruelty of her husband. This man has been now punished by the Sessions Court. Double life imprisonment has been inflicted on him. Of course, now he is in jail. We do not know about whether he has gone for appeal. Naturally, he must have gone for appeal, and things like that. So it has already been decided by the Sessions Court. That's the reason why I have brought all these aspects, because if it was a matter that was still pending before one of the courts, I would not have been able to analyze these matters or discuss these matters before this class. Anyway, so that is also, so physical cruelty can go to any extent. But one aspect regarding this is it's more tangible. It is something which you can find out, or you can have evidence for, as long as you plead specific instances for physical cruelty. But again, there are instances when women are beaten up and they hardly go to hospitals. They hardly go and tell the hospitals that they are beaten up by their husbands. If they get beaten up on their head, then there are contusions on their body also. When they go to the hospital, they give an impression that I fell down in the bathroom, that something heavy fell on me. That is the reason why these contusions have happened. And unless and until some doctors find it very strange or extraordinary and something fishy about it, and they take the step to inform the police, this does not come out at all. Because mostly the women do not want to let down their husbands. And normally what happens is the girl's family also attempts to bring them back to a husband, and have a proper reunion and behave as though nothing has happened at all. So physical cruelty, but if you are able to plead and prove physical cruelty properly, it's an easier method of getting a divorce. But when it comes to mental cruelty, emotional cruelty, as I said, there's a lot more difficulty to prove. Because if I can give you certain examples of mental cruelty, see, a person who's a drunkard. He comes home, he creates a lot of racket in the house, he shouts, he howls, and the whole screams, the whole neighborhood comes to know of it, and then he beats up his wife. there is nothing much for her to inform others, because everybody around sees what this man is doing to her, or this man's nature, this man's character is exposed. But there are some men who are very pally or who are very nice in front of others. Nobody would believe that he is very cruel to his wife. What if this man comes home and he's absolutely emotionally unavailable to his wife? His wife, when he gets back from home, the wife goes to him and tells him what happens the whole day, what happened the whole day. And she tries to start a conversation with him, talks to him about what has happened and like what she has been doing the whole day. But this man absolutely ignores her. He just doesn't engage himself in a conversation with her. He's not interested in talking to her at all. But he's just silent at home. He is not shouting back at her. He is not irritating her at all. He just keeps quiet. Or rather, he's reading a newspaper. He continues reading the newspaper. He doesn't speak to her at all. Don't you think that is also that's also mental, emotional cruelty towards the wife? Or what if the husband comes home with a lot of happiness from work? He brings a lot of things for his wife and children. And his wife, she sits and watches TV. And as the man comes into the house, she just doesn't bother to greet him at all. And he goes, keeps all these things and says, see, I've brought all this for you. And this wife says, okay, you keep it there. I'll see it later. And there is absolutely no emotional availability that is meted out to the spouse. These things, it's very difficult to plead and prove. So maximum what the courts feel is, how can a woman or how can a man plead and give evidence to the effect that the husband or the other spouse, be it the husband or the wife, does not emotionally engage with him? What will the court will ask? Okay, now he is not hitting you, he is not shouting at you, he is not screaming at you, he is not going against what you say, he is not contradicting you. All that is, he is keeping quiet. Perhaps that's part of his nature. But if the lady or the husband, if the spouse is able to prove that it's a case of selective unavailability, what if this person is an outgoing person when it comes to his friends? The person is he's a very talkative person. He keeps talking to people, or when it comes to his own relatives, whichever spouse it is, whether it's a husband or wife. When it comes to other people, they are very outgoing. And when it comes to their spouse, they become selectively inclusive. They become an introvert. If that be so, the woman can definitely, the woman or man, the spouse can definitely raise a contention that he's being selectively, emotionally cruel to the spouse. The feeling of unwantedness in the house. The spouse who comes to the house or who remains in the house feels there's nothing between you both. There's nothing between the husband and wife. So it's an emotional unavailability. It's a feeling of unwantedness that also amounts to mental cruelty. The difficulty is it is very difficult to plead and prove such situations. Then let me take you to how the decisions, one of the earliest decisions, in the sense, it's in the year 1992, it's an Allahabad decision. It says solitary instance of cruelty would not constitute cruelty so as to grant a decree for divorce. Rather, the behavior of the other party has to be persistent in repeatedly treating the other spouse with such cruelty so as to cause reasonable apprehension in the mind of the husband or wife that it will be harm or injurious for him or her to live with the other party. This is a case where that is why I said we should realize the change in the attitude of the courts and how the jurisprudence of cruelty, of the law of cruelty, has evolved. Initially, one single instance of cruelty at a party, he just ignored me. Or when I went for a family function, he or she just ignored me. He or she, they took more time, or rather they spent more time. He spent more time with his family, or he spent more time with his friends. So I was ignored. I felt left out in the crowd. That one single instance, the court says that one single instance need not be considered as a case of cruelty. But as I told you earlier, that particular movie which I talked about, I think it was released last year, 2020, I think. By that time, the concept of cruelty had changed. That one single slap, she could not handle it at all. She felt it was a violation of her self-respect. So that concept has changed. Now, a single instance of cruelty, and initially what the court says is the person who's under the spouse who's undergoing this cruelty should be able to plead and prove before the court that he or she is not able to continue with that person because of the cruelty, and they have a reasonable apprehension that this kind of cruelty is likely to affect or harm his or her life. So to that extent, one has to prove cruelty. Unless and until that kind of cruelty is proved, the courts never interfered to give a divorce. After all, Jane, though it's a matter of family, you put up with all this. We all have heard our parents telling you, only a woman can handle a family. And as long as the women are able to handle whatever traumas that come, you should be able to, you should have tolerance, you should be able to handle these issues on your own. So that emotional emotional aspect of a woman has always been ignored or sidelined, or the woman who tolerates more was considered to be the ideal woman in our society. Perhaps that is because of the patriarchal concept which we all have. That is a part of it. It's not my fault. It's not your fault. That is the way we have all been brought up. But now that change has come. So now slowly there is a transition that is taking place in the among the people, because as you know, almost movies, as I told you earlier, that is one form of giving you an idea, or rather that gives you a lot of. It's very impressive when you watch movies, because I can give you one example. There was a movie which happened, a Malayalam movie of my language, my regional language, about 6-7 years back. It was a movie which was a box office hit, in which there was an instance where a police inspector, he's the hero of that movie. And the police inspector, he's supposed to be a very just person, and but all the same, he takes third-degree methods, or he uses third-degree methods on real accused, or in the sense on real rowdies and anti-social elements and all that. Now, a human rights activist woman and her husband, they approach this police inspector and tells him and questions him, and she introduces herself as a human rights activist, and she says, I have heard you to be a very just police officer, but then I have to ask you something. I have also heard that you are well known for using third-degree methods against against these accused and antisocial elements, but don't you think that's a violation of human rights? Now, this man replies to her sarcastically. It was a very male-centric comments, which we did not realize at that time when this movie became a hit. He says, tomorrow, madam, when you walk on the road and this so-called husband of yours, if an antisocial element comes and molests you, or rather violates you, this so-called husband of yours, will he come and question this? Won't he come and question this antisocial element who has violated you? For a moment, we all felt what was unnatural about this issue, what this question, whether the husband would come and question the person who violated his wife, what is wrong in it. But now start thinking from the other side of it. If a woman is violated, is she the property of a man for a man to go and question that? Why can't she question herself? So that transition of thinking, I'm nobody's property. I am an individual of my own. If something happens to me, I have to react. I am the one who has to question. So that transition, that thinking process, that thought process has changed now. Accordingly, the concept of cruelty has also changed. So that is in one way, in a colloquial manner, when elders speak, that is why we can hear people speak. Nowadays, the girls are not at all tolerant. The girls, they can't tolerate whatever incident that is happening at home. They immediately react. It is actually not a matter of lack of tolerance. It's actually a matter of change in thought process. Recently, I can also give you a case before. some cases which we handle in courts that gives us a lot of lessons. Recently, there was a case. The husband is a lawyer. The wife is a doctor. She's a doctor by profession. She got into her MBBS and she got into her post-graduation merely on merit. She wrote the entrance examinations. She cleared everything. The boy is also a very brilliant lawyer. He belongs to a very, very good family. His father's, he has people in the judiciary, as well as his relatives, close relatives are also in the judiciary, as well as they are also government servants. This girl also comes from a reasonably good background. They got married, and the boys studied abroad also. Now, in the process, what the girl realized was, actually this matter was referred to me for a mediation. And in this process, what I understand was, see, both of them are well-natured. Both of them are brilliant. They're good people on their own. But it so happened that both of them could not get on with each other because their characters were absolutely different. The boy was very submissive at home. And however much the home front, his home front, however they used to interfere regularly in his regular affairs. Like even evening when he used to go out with his wife, they would question him, when are you going? What time are you coming back? Are you going to have dinner from outside? If you're going to have dinner from outside, please let us know. And the girl says the days when they had to lie at home and go out. Legally married, still they had to lie at home and then go out. So she said, it does not suit my personality. Why should I lie to the people at home to say that I'm going out with my husband? Because immediately the boy will say, see, it's better that we don't inform them because they might not be very happy about it. So he wants to please his people. And this girl says, why should I be considered as, why should it be a sin for this man to spend time with me? He is my legally married husband. Why is he still finding it difficult to spend time with me? So immediately she said, and to an extent where she was not allowed, the husband's people said, we will decide which hospital you have to work. A very brilliant doctor she is. Wherever she worked, she was given a lot of respect, and she proved herself everywhere, wherever she worked. But the husband's people would insist that she should work in places where which they choose. And when there is an issue, what they say is, she's allowed to work. We never told her not to work. But she should work in places where we say. Of course, for no reasons. I can understand if this place, that's what the girl said. She said, madam, I can understand if I'm working in places in very remote areas where it's very difficult, or where it's a very dangerous place, or it's very, very far away from the house so that I'm not able to get back to house. I can understand to a large extent because family life is important. But for other reasons, like pecuniary reasons, or for other issues, or for the, she was even forced to take up jobs in hospitals, which was not her specialization. She said all this amounted to cruelty as far as I am concerned, because she was not able to handle that. So she had to file a petition for divorce on grounds of cruelty. But of course, when the court proceedings were on, it reached a stage where a child's custody was also involved. So we had to go for a settlement. But had she gone ahead with it, perhaps her sense of cruelty was that. According to her, that was the cruelty that was meted out to her. So in 1992 Allahabad case, it says that solitary instance of cruelty would not constitute cruelty, and reasonable apprehension should be there in the mind of husband or wife that this marriage, if continued, would lead to problems to her, or it would be injurious to him or her to live with the other party. Then comes Pushpa Rani versus Vijay Pal Singh. It's again an Allahabad decision. A threat to commit suicide by the wife amounts to infliction of mental cruelty to the husband, but it should not be uttered in a domestic tiff. See, as much as we laugh it off, but we all know when there are terrible fights at home, there are times when the spouses, they threaten, like, this is the end of everything. I'm going to end my life. I've had enough with you. I'm done with this life. I'm done with my life with you. So those are all things that are taken as a part of the tiff that happens. It's a normal tiff that happens between husband and wife or in the family. But otherwise, if you find your spouse in a peculiar mood, or rather, like he keeps saying, I'm not happy with this life all the more. I mean, to continue with this life, I don't find anything good about this. And in this aspect, I should tell you, I have find from cases that have come to us, with the cases which we handle, we have come to see that more women threaten their husbands with by saying that they'll commit suicide. And so there are men who come and tell us, madam, I'm so scared to leave my wife at home and then go for work. I'm not in a position to go and work, especially because of 304B, section 304B and all that in IPC. Within 7 years, if she does something to herself, myself and my family will be put to trouble. So there are women who, they try to get their things done by saying that, like, if you don't do this for me, I will see to it that something is done myself. It is a constant threat like that can amount to mental cruelty. Then Bhagat versus Bhagat, again, it's a Supreme Court decision. In which by then there's a slight change. The Supreme Court's attitude says, in other words, cruelty must be of such a nature that the parties reasonably cannot be expected to live together. See, for example, the example which I told you right now regarding that doctor and that lawyer couple. Both of them, see, if you look at it, that lawyer, he's a nice person. He's a very good lawyer. He obeys his parents. He's a hardworking boy. And that girl, if you see, she's a very enterprising girl. This doctor girl, this wife, very smart girl, and she knows what to do. She's dignified. She handles herself very well. But unfortunately, they are not able to live together at all, because whatever she does, whenever she takes a very stern stand, the husband feels that she is being very arrogant and very aggressive. And when the husband says, no, don't go there, or why do you come so late? Why don't you take up a job till afternoon? She feels that he is preventing her from doing her vocation. So whatever be it, like there is absolutely no flow of thought between them. What he says, she's not able to take it in the proper sense. What she says, he's not able to take it in the proper sense. Then comes, it's a case where the parties cannot reasonably, you cannot expect them to live together happily. That is what I'm talking about, mental cruelty. Again, physical part of it. There are women who are subjected to a lot of physical abuse, but they put up with it. Because that is something which we have also found in Kerala also. Though a literate state, with very high in literacy, still we have found a lot of women who prefer, like we know instances where women are being beaten up by men even outside their house, in the sense to an extent where the neighbors can also watch it, also see it, and the neighbors sometimes at times they interfere. And they try to stop the husband from beating the wife. Immediately, the wife takes a turn and she says, why do you interfere? It's my husband who's beating me. It's something which is between us. We will sort it out. But so there are situations, or there is an attitude to that effect also. But a situation arises when the husband treats the wife with scant respect and hits her black and blue without any respect given to her, to an extent where she feels if she is not protected from there, she will commit suicide, or it will affect her life totally. Again, there is recently there was a very sad case that has happened in Kerala again. Actually, Dowry Prohibition Act, though it was enacted as early as 1961, in Kerala, we never had much of dowry instances. And of course, there are two reasons to it. One is most of the instances that the girls people used to revel in giving gifts, costly, expensive gifts and things in the name of gift. Whatever the girl is entitled to as gold and or as property or as vehicles, they use as money, as pocket money, they used to shower it on the boys people. The moment the girl and boy have a tiff between them, this gift turns into the term dowry. Another reason why is there are girls who are very stern about it. They say we are not ready to give dowry, and the boys also, they have taken a stand that we don't want dowries. But many cases are not reported. So that was one reason why the Dowry Prohibition Act remained a dead letter throughout. 1961, the act got enacted, but as we all know, there are marriages that most of the marriages take place with a give and take of dowry. Now, recently, there was a very sad, unfortunate incident that took place in Kerala. An Ayurveda doctor that again hit the headlines. An Ayurveda doctor, she was finally a student of Ayurveda medicine, and she was married to a government servant, and very pretty looking, very good looking couple, very made for each other looking couple. And within a year or so, this husband was physically manhandling her for more dowry. And the saddest thing is, there are times when this girl used to come back home and inform her parents about it. And unfortunately, the parents used to tell her, these are all things, that's a part of life, try to put up with it. And she used to be asked to get back home. And ultimately, this girl commits suicide. And that is the time when there's a hue and cry created by the society, by the whole of Kerala stood by the girls' people. And, of course, they were not happy about the way the people, the family handled it initially. But of course, once she was no more, they all wanted the man to be taken to task. And of course, that is the investigation and other issues are going on now. During that incident, there was what you call a kind of channel discussions that were going on. In one of the channel discussions, what a psychiatrist opined or he commented was, a divorced daughter is better than a dead daughter. That is something which the parents should also realize, because there is always an anxiety among parents to see to it that they still consider divorce as a taboo. So there is always an approach from the parents, or rather there is always an anxiety on the side of the girl's parents to see to it that the marriage goes on constantly, however much the girl suffers. So that was an important motto, that was an important message that was passed. A divorced daughter is much better than a dead daughter. So when it comes to mental cruelty, the moment the girls or whoever who comes and informs it in the house, that at home, that he or she is not in a position to go ahead with the marriage, they should see to it that the marriage gets separated properly in the most legal manner. Then in that particular case, in the Supreme Court decision, it was also mentioned, the situation must be such that the wrong party cannot reasonably ask to put up with such conduct, which is cruel in nature, and to continue with the other party. It is not necessary to prove that the mental cruelty such as to cause injury to the health of the petitioner. While arriving to the conclusion, regard must be had to the social status, educational level of the parties, the society they move in, the possibility or otherwise of them ever living together in case they are already living apart, and all other facts and circumstances which it is neither possible nor desirable to exhaustively. That is, when it comes to mental cruelty, the Supreme Court has been repeatedly stating this aspect, that many factors have to be taken into consideration while deciding a mental cruelty. That is what I said, like regarding the educational level. See, that is, as far as the doctor-lawyer couple, which I stated earlier, it was at educational level. She wanted to lead or do a job of her educational status, but she was prevented from doing that. So that was as far as she is concerned, that was cruelty towards her. Then the social status. See, there are some women who are not used to social drinking, But what if the man comes and forces her to, the husbands force the women or force the wives to drink in social gatherings? For her, as far as that woman is concerned, it might be a cruelty because she's not used to it. But if she's a woman who's used to social drinking, it would not be a cruelty at all to her. So that's why I said it's a subjective term. Then comes, what is cruelty in one case may not amount to cruelty in another case. The matter to be decided in each case having regard to the circumstances of that case. If it is a case of acquisitions, and regard must also be had to the context in which they were made. That is what. When certain allegations or accusations are made in a case, we have to consider the situation or the background also in which, or the context also in which it is made. For example, I'll give you. I know a case where the husband and wife, it was a love marriage. They started living after marriage, after the girls' people also, you know, the families all consented and they got married. And they are living in the boys' the boys' house. The boys' family is not at all happy with the girl. They are not happy with the daughter-in-law. The reason the daughter-in-law is fine. She does whatever that is possible in the house. She goes for her job. She gets back on time. She tries to cook everything at home. She tries to maintain the household. She helps the elders in the house. But somehow or the other, the husband's people are not happy for the very simple reason that it was a love marriage. It was their son's choice. They feel that was not proper. Had we found somebody of our choice, things would have been different. But the girl suffers this, but she's not able to prove it. How can she prove this? How can she? Because in front of others, the husband's people, they always, you know, they try to be well behaved to the girl. They're nice to her. But when she gets back after work, they just ignore her. They just don't talk to her. They keep food separately for the son. But if the girl comes, she has to cook on her own and eat something, but there might not be anything much there. Some days when she gets late after getting work, there are days when she starves and she sleeps. But she's not able to tell this and prove this before the court, because when it comes to it comes in front of people, the husband's people, they put up a very good show. They're very happy. They are very proud of their daughter-in-law, that she's working, that she's able to handle everything. She's very smart. But immediately they will at home, the scenario is totally different. So these are things in certain contexts, how the person has to put up or rather plead and prove the kind of cruelty that is meted out to that person. Because as I was about to tell you, in one case, in this particular case itself, after the couple had a child, the child was being left at home and this mother started working again. So naturally, the mother-in-law was taking care of the child. So everybody told her, see, you are so lucky, you have your mother-in-law to take care of the child. But it was a very strange thing. She was not able to prove that, rather express this to others. Whenever she came back home, the mother-in-law would see to it that the child doesn't get to the mother. Because the child is tutored that the mother doesn't want you. Your mommy doesn't want you. Your mommy is leaving you here and going for work. So only I will be there to take care of you. So when the child is constantly being tutored in that manner, the child started keeping a distance with the mother whenever the mother started coming back from work. To an extent where the daughter felt, the wife felt that I'll give up my job and sit at home so that I don't lose my daughter. So these are all very subtle ways of cruelty. This is very difficult to prove. So these are all things which that is why the judges also have to be very sensitive to such issues, especially when lawyers who have been handling such issues, when they get elevated, I think they get very sensitive to such issues, because there are so many judges in our judiciary also who are very sensitive and who are, it's very easy to communicate to the judges about the difficulty of a woman or a male, because they have, as lawyers, they would have handled many cases to that effect. Then another case, as Hanumantarao versus Ramani. It's again a Supreme Court case of 1999. That is a case where it is held removal of Mangal Sutra by wife at the instance of her husband does not amount to mental cruelty. Because that was a case where the husband had stated that the wife removed her Mangal Sutra. But apparently that was a case when it was during one of their private movements, the husband had asked her to remove it and keep it aside. So when she said that she kept it aside at the instance of her husband, the court said the husband cannot later turn back and say that she removed it with purpose and that it amounted to mental cruelty. Yudhishthir Singh versus Sarita. It's 2002 Rajasthan case, where you can find, this is something which you always normally find in cases where the husbands work away abroad, or they're not stationed in the place where they're living. Because husband normally says, what they say is, you stay back with my parents, you take care of them. I'm leaving, I have to go and work. And he comes once in a year or once in 2 years, or this continuous separation, physical separation from the husband can amount to cruelty. That attitude can amount to cruelty. There might be circumstances when the husband is not in a position to take the wife where he works, to where he works. There might be very reasonable reasons why he's not in a position to take. But if he's a person of that attitude, now this girl comes to know, the wife comes to know that essentially the husband is in a position, like she tries to find out the nature of his visa and tries to find out how the place is. It's a place where the wife's, you can have family visa, you can take your spouse as well. But still he sees, or rather he repeatedly tells her, see, I got married to you because I wanted somebody at home. I want you to take care of everybody at home. Now that is the only reason why I got married to you. Continuous utterance of such terms amounts to cruelty. That is what the court said. Nalini Sundar versus G.V. Sundar, 2003 Karnataka decision. This again makes sense. This says you cannot point out instances by saying, at that time, when there was a fight between us on 23rd of January, he said that. Now, in the course of quarrel, there might be utterances of vengeance and what happened when 10 years back, this happened 4 years back. But you have to see to it whether the other circumstances also have to be taken into consideration. It cannot be viewed in isolation. For example, if there is a major fight between the husband and wife, and ultimately the husband says, go die somewhere. Go die wherever you want to. Immediately the wife takes up that issue and says, he asked me to go and die. That is utterance of this thing. It's a mental cruelty on me. He asked me to go and die, so I am scared to live with him. He's likely to kill me. But if the husband is able to narrate the whole instance, for the past 2-3 years, or 2-3 days, there has been small issues between them regarding some financial crunch or something at home, or then this, and in the process, the wife would have said, in this process, the wife would have said, if things are going like this, I am going to die. I don't think I'll be able to live in this house because of that. And in that process, the husband would have said, do whatever you want, go die. So you cannot take instances in one isolation. You have to take the whole situation, the sequence of matters and decide. So that's what the court said. Isolating issues cannot be treated as isolated incidents of utterances of or instances cannot be considered as mental cruelty enough to grant a divorce. Then comes Jayadayal versus Shakuntala Devi. The leveling of false allegation by one spouse regarding alleged illicit relations with different persons. See, this again that has to be handled with care. If a woman or a man keeps alleging about the spouse, that the spouse is having illicit relationship with whoever, the person with whom he works, the person or the maidservant at home, or the neighbor, or his own relatives, keeps on saying that, unless the spouse is able to prove that the alleged spouse has a nature of that extent. What if a man is known for being a womanizer, and this lady has had occasions to see him in compromising positions? then at some point she will only consider it that way. She will only start thinking, okay, now this man has some problem. Even if he talks innocently to a person, she will think this man has got a relationship with that woman. Otherwise, just making random statements or random allegations, false allegations. That is why it's meant as false allegations, that the other spouse is having illicit relationship. That can amount to mental cruelty. Neelu Kohli versus Naveen Kohli, 2004 Allahabad decision. Now, the important aspect in this decision is whether the intention to be cruel is important or not. No, a person behaves rudely to the husband. A woman behaves rudely to the husband and says, you are only concerned about your family. You are not bothered about me at all. You be with them full time. You do whatever you want. You do give whatever you want with them. Or, I will get peace of mind only if your parents pass away. So as far as the man is concerned, it's a matter of hurt. He can't even think of the woman is talking about his parents. But if she continuously says, unless I will not get peace of mind unless and until your parents are no more. But when questioned, this lady says, I did not intend to be cruel. I just said like that. I did not say that. I really did not mean to say that, I want them to be dead. I never meant that. I just spoke because I got angry with this man, because this man doesn't do anything for me. He does everything only for his people. So in that fit of rage, I said, like that. I never meant it. But the court said whether it is not an essential element, whether there's intention or not is not an essential element. Whatever cruel statements that is being uttered can cause mental cruelty, can cause emotional abuse, which is capable of granting divorce. So intention is immaterial. Sadhana Srivastav versus Aravind Kumar Srivastav, that's again 2006 Allahabad decision. That is not only making false allegations and extramarital affairs, she makes such a lot of allegations in the written statement. Reading the written statement itself, the court, this is a case where reading her written statement, the court felt it's a very fit case to grant divorce for the man, because to live with such a woman, it's going to be very difficult. Because extramarital affairs and illicit relationships, which the manner in which it has been portrayed. So his case itself was, in that case, the man's case itself was that he was suspicious. The wife was being suspicious about him, and was continuously alleging him of having illicit relationship and extramarital affairs. But that was being dramatized and portrayed in her written statement as well. So that false allegations to that effect, the court said, just because her written statement carried so much of false allegations, it was reasonable. It was because in the process of the case, it was proved that all these allegations were false. So the court said the very fact that she made such false allegations in the written statement is sufficient cause for a husband to consider it as cruelty for him to get a decree of divorce. Maya Devi versus Jagdish Prasad, 2007 Supreme Court. It's generally regarding mental welfare, that is, it's reasonable causes apprehension in the spouse about his or her mental welfare that amounts to cruelty. The wife or husband feels, their mental health will be affected if they continue with the relationship. If the relationship gets toxic, that's something I always advise my clients also. The moment you feel your relationship is getting toxic, better leave. Otherwise, if you are able to see, whenever you go for a counseling, whenever there is a marital counseling, you should always have an inclination, or rather you should always look forward to see to it that the marriage gets repaired again. For example, if the husband and wife, they're going on parallel lines, but both of them at some point of time, they do care for each other, but it so happens that what the husband wants, the wife is not able to communicate properly, or rather the husband is not able to communicate to the wife what actually he wants from her. The wife is not able to communicate properly to the husband what actually she wants from him. So in such circumstances, the counseling helps so that, there is a bridge. That bridge between them is gapped. The gap between them is bridged. I'm sorry. The gap between them is bridged. But in cases when there's absolutely now no love or concern between each other, that very moment that relationship starts getting toxic. Whatever the husband says, the wife feels it is only against her. Whatever the wife says, the husband feels is only against him. So there is no proper interpretation of the communication between them. So that can be very, very toxic. So in such, the moment you feel this is going to affect your mental peace of mind or your mental welfare or your mental health, that amounts to cruelty. Then comes physical cruelty. Physical cruelty, I've just given a slide to include slapping, beating, punching, burning with cigarettes. It amounts to domestic violence as well. As we all know, what domestic violence is, as under the Protection of Women from the Domestic Violence Act. So whatever physical violence, even to an extent of, trying to get wild animals attack the spouse, or for that matter, try to get quotations. There are instances when, where the quotations are given to antisocial elements to kill the husband, because if the woman has an illicit relationship or an extramarital relationship, she tries to avoid the husband by getting people to. But the moment it comes out, it not only amounts to physical cruelty, it's a major mental cruelty also, emotional cruelty also. Of course, criminal cases offenses follow suit, but all the same, all this amounts to mental and physical cruelty to seek divorce. This is a very old case, 1975 Supreme Court case, where Honorable Justice Y.V. Chandrachud, father of present Justice Chandrachud, his lordship had given certain tests were propounded by his lordship Justice Y.V. Chandrachud, who was then later retired as the Chief Justice of India, in order to determine the gravity of cruelty. These are the tests. The alleged acts that amount to cruelty should be proved as per the law of evidence. The petitioner should have an apprehension in mind with respect to the actual injury or harm from the conduct of another person. There should be no condemnation of cruelty by the petitioner. The petitioner should not take the benefit of his position. These two are very important aspects. Just imagine his lordship's farsightedness, because this is a judgment that came in the year 1975. Even now, these two aspects are very, very important, that there should not be any condemnation of cruelty by the petitioner. Like condemnation of cruelty, I suppose all of you know that a person is subjected to cruelty, he takes over, or rather he or she puts up with it for a long period and continues marital relationship with that person, and after about 15 or 20 years of continuous cruelty, he or she comes forward and says, now I cannot take any more of it. So there is an element of he has been putting up with this cruelty, he or she has been putting up with this cruelty for ages together. That is one aspect that has to be looked into the court while granting divorce on grounds of cruelty. The petitioner should not take the benefit of his position. If the husband is in a better position, rather financially, if he is in an upper hand, naturally the wife tends to put up with this cruelty. That also has to be taken into consideration, because you must have all heard it's a psychological term which I understand most of the psychologists or the counselors use when it comes to marital counseling. It's this term called Stockholm syndrome. Initially, Stockholm syndrome is always used in cases where the kidnappers or the abductors, the captives have a concern, or rather a feeling of an affection towards the abductors. But now slowly that has also been used in cases of domestic violence. What happens is the woman, or mostly women who are subjected to domestic violence, they tend to have a submissive feeling, or rather they tend to have that okay, now this is my life, I'm ready to accept my life like this. That kind of a submissiveness towards their spouses. This can be either because of their need for survival, or it can be due to a state of denial. They don't want to believe that these things are happening to them. So these are all aspects that is normally considered while granting a decree for divorce on grounds of cruelty. This is a very recent decision. Joydeep Majumdar versus Bharati Jaiswal Majumdar. This is a case where an army officer, this is a decision by Honorable Justice Rishikesh Roy. It's His Lordship's decision, but a full bench decision from the Supreme Court, where it says the degree of tolerance will vary from one couple to another. See, this is a case where an army officer filed a petition for divorce on the ground that his wife would regularly send letters to his higher authorities about his about whatever family issues they have, or the domestic difficulties she has. She used to send letters to the higher authorities defaming or rather ridiculing her husband. So that amounted to mental cruelty. So there was a degree of tolerance because some men put up with a lot of nonsense. That is again what I'm telling you. That is the degree of tolerance will vary from one. That is the difference in jurisprudence you find, because in the earlier decision, in His Lordship Justice Chandrachud's decision 1975, condonation of cruelty was also to be considered by the courts. That is the degree of tolerance. Condonation of cruelty to an extent is degree of tolerance. Now, if that person has put up with this nonsense for a long time, he or she, whether he or she is entitled to a degree of divorce on the ground of cruelty was a question. Then that was a test that had to be looked into by His Lordship in the 1975 judgment. But when it comes to 2020, the Honorable Supreme Court says the degree of tolerance will vary from one couple to another. You cannot keep a uniform standard for the same. That is the thought process change that has come up in the society. Then comes Shivashankaran versus Shanti Meenal. This is again a very recent judgment. This is a judgment by Honorable Sanjay Kishan Kaul. It's dated 14th September 2021. And in this case, the earlier issue which I had discussed, what the society feels about divorces. Society at large does not accept divorce given the weighted importance of marriage as a social institution in India. Or at least it's far more difficult for women to retain social acceptance after a decree of divorce. This, coupled with law's failure to guarantee economic and financial security to women in the event of a breakdown of marriage, stated to be the reason for the legislature's reluctance to introduce irretrievable breakdown as a ground for divorce. Now, this is a judgment by Justice S.K. Kaul. See, irretrievable breakdown of marriage is still not a ground for divorce in India. Except, of course, as we all know, the Honorable Supreme Court has, in one or two cases, granted divorce under Article 142 of the Constitution of India by invoking the inherent power of the apex court. But it is not a case where a divorce was granted on grounds of irretrievable breakdown under Article 141. The moment the judgment is under Article 141, it becomes the law of the land. But since it was by invoking the inherent jurisdictional powers of the Supreme Court under Article 142, still irretrievable breakdown theory is not a valid ground for granting divorce in India because it's not the law of the land. Now, the reason why irretrievable breakdown is not given as a ground for divorce, Honorable Justice Kaul and Honorable Justice Rishikesh Roy, they observe in this judgment, because still the society at large, they give a lot of importance for marriage, for the institution of marriage, and they feel that women become very insecure the moment they come out of marriage. The court also noted that repeated allegations and litigations against a spouse amount to cruelty, which is a ground for divorce. That's also there. There are women who haunt men. There are men who haunt women. In spite of after getting divorce, also there are women who haunt men by asking for maintenance under some provision, under some other provision, under some other statute. There's a lot of misuse of statutes and laws. So that also amounts to cruelty. That's what in this particular case. And if you go through the facts of this case, it's very strange that it's the first day of marriage itself, the woman walks out of the marriage, first day of marriage. Then there are some important decisions which I have mentioned. Important decisions relating to cruelty. If you can write it down, note it down, because I did not want to go to the facts of each case. These are all decisions that relates to the ground of cruelty as a ground for divorce. Hope you have been able to write it down. Anybody who is writing notes. These are also another set of decisions. These are some decisions from the Kerala High Court. That is mostly following the decisions which I had earlier stated itself. The last one I would like to mention the obiter dicta of the, or rather, I mean, I'm sorry, the ratio dissidentity of the case. That is Ranjit PC versus Asha Nair, 2024 KLT 660. There's one aspect which we all as lawyers should know, that when a judgment is being pronounced by judges, a lot of their personal attitude will reflect on the judgments. That's something very common, as Justice Cardoso himself has said. It's for if all of us, like tomorrow, you and me, we all become judges. Our attitude, or what we have suffered in life, or what we have undergone in life, or what we have been subjected to, or what we have experienced, will all reflect when we write a judgment. So in this case, Ranjit PC versus Asha Nair 2024 KLT 660, it's a very strange situation which the judges who passed this judgment felt was cruelty. Otherwise the woman would have considered herself to have been subjected to cruelty, because this is a case where she gave a petition for divorce in which she stated that the husband has taken to drinking and he was a drunkard, and he used to be extremely cruel to him, to her. She said he used to take to drinking, and his counter, or rather his reply to it was, he was constrained to take to drinking because he was forced to get to sever his relationship with his parents. His mother, and this girl immediately replied, she said she was forced to do household work by her in-laws. So the court said the in-laws asking, or rather requesting the daughter-in-law to, or expecting the daughter-in-law to do some household chores is not nothing bad, or it cannot amount to cruelty. But her consistent insistence on the husband leaving his home and living separately for the purpose of separating him from his family, forced him to take to drinks, and therefore it is her conduct that has amounted to cruelty and not his conduct. It's a very strange manner in which the court has seen it, because that is what I said. It's relative. It's each one's perspective of concept of cruelty that will reflect in the cases. And this is again one other case by the Kerala High Court. This I would like to highlight because this talks about how to make pleadings regarding cruelty. You cannot just give, he has been cruel to me. You have to give specific instances of cruelty with dates. There are two decisions by the Kerala High Court which insist on proper pleadings in order to prove cruelty. This is Bina versus Sundareshan and others. Then Rajkumar T versus Molji Mol, 2017 2 KHC 222. Petitioner should have specific pleadings with reference to the instances of cruelty meted out to the respondent, and those have to be established by cogent evidence as well. This is a very important decision of the Kerala High Court. I have not been able to give a citation because it's a masked judgment. It's a masked judgment, so that the name of the parties are not there. It's a judgment dated 30/7/2021, which you will get in the Kerala High Court website. That's a case where the Honorable High Court has held that marital rape amounts to cruelty and forms ground for divorce. Though it's not an offense, as you all know, because of the exception 2 of Section 375 IPC, marital rape is still not an offense in India, but the Kerala High Court held that it amounts to cruelty that forms ground for divorce. Then I have just stated the equivalent provisions in other statutes. The Divorce Act is Section 1010, subclause 10, which is equivalent to Section 13(1)(1)(a). Special Marriage Act, we have Section 27(1) to subclause D. Then under the Dissolution of Muslim Marriage Act, Section 2(8), which says in that the difference is emotional, mental cruelty is not involved. The husband treats her with cruelty. That is, it's an old act, Dissolution of Muslim Marriage Act. This is of the year 1939. So in that is the attitude of the society, what I'm telling you. Habitually assaults her or makes her life miserable by cruelty of conduct. Such conduct does not amount to physical ill treatment. That is, or associates with women of evil repute or leads an infamous life, or forces her to lead an immoral life, or disposes her property to prevent her exercising her legal rights. There are certain aspects, or rather there are certain points that have been included under the definition of cruelty as far as Section 2(8) of Dissolution of Muslim Marriage Act is concerned. So this I have just mentioned just in order to have a comparative rather outlook of the different statutes which have equivalent provisions. So I think I should stop now because it's almost 10 minutes to 6 o'clock. Hope I have been able to cover a bird's eye view of the subject. Because I cannot hear you. You are not audible.
No, in fact, somehow the host rights have been transferred to someone else.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, we can remove the slide for a minute.
Yes.
Yeah, the query is will Section 13 apply to a Muslim who is married as a Muslim? To wheat principle, I couldn't get it together. Sorry. In case if wife is putting false allegations stating that my husband is drinking and hitting me, but there is no evidence with wife, how would this be proved in the court that she is telling lie? Unmute. You will have to unmute, ma'am.
Yes. At the outset, the question itself has an issue because a Hindu marrying a Muslim will not come under the purview of Hindu Marriage Act. If the Muslim continues to be a Muslim and a Hindu continues to be a Hindu, the Hindu Marriage Act does not apply. If a marriage registration has to take place, it has to take place under the Special Marriage Act. Unless there is a registered marriage under the Special Marriage Act, then of course you can invoke the provision under the Special Marriage Act to divorce. Ground for cruelty as a ground for divorce, as I had stated under the equivalent provisions under Section 27, there is a provision for that. But under the Hindu Marriage Act, you cannot. Yes, sir.
The second question is, in case the wife is putting false allegations stating that the husband is drinking and hitting, but there is no evidence with wife, how could this be proved in the court of law?
It's a matter of evidence. There is a matter of evidence, like but if a husband is drinking and hitting, and if there's a physical torture, as I had stated earlier, by drinking purpose, of course, it might be difficult to prove if that man is not drinking in public, or he's seeing to it that he's not drinking in. Or if either she should get people to depose that the husband is drinking, that they have seen this man drinking. And as far as the hitting is concerned, she should get herself hospitalized and get some kind of hospital records, some kind of wound certificates to prove that she has been hit by this man. And accordingly, at that time, if she can tell the hospital authorities that she has been hit by her husband who's drunk, they can immediately the police will be informed, and the police can come and find out whether this man was drunk at the time of hitting. Of course, there are blood tests and other. Only thing is you have to be immediately respond to it and then inform the police and do something about it. Then of course you can make records to prove it before the court.
This is by Vikas. Is audio recording where wife uses slang language for husband and parents admissible for proving cruelty, and case law, if any?
Case law, as to that extent, because the case laws which I have given gives you an idea as to, like, whether slang language is bad, foul language. If the wife uses it and the husband is able to prove that certain recordings can be there, or certain neighbors or servants can come and depose to the effect that we have heard this lady behaving badly to the husband, or certain other circumstances, corroborative evidence to prove that this lady is her nature is that, or rather her character is that, we should be able to prove. So when it comes to case law, there might not be a case to say that using slang language will amount to cruelty, but there are the decisions which I had submitted or rather which I've given here you can use them in your favor, as long as you're able to prove the fact that this lady has been using foul language towards her in-laws.
Can wife file divorce on the same ground of cruelty on which the previous case of domestic violence stands dismissed?
That will not stand. That the husband can use it against her, saying that it's. I think I have given one case also to that effect. It's a Kerala decision. One of the slides I have given. If Section 498A, if the husband is acquitted, if the lady has given a petition for cruelty, or rather for abuse under Section 498A, and he's acquitted, he can say that can be used as a reason to show cruelty cruelty meted out to him by the wife. He can use it in his favor for getting a divorce, saying that she has made false allegations and a court of law has found me innocent.
Wife has been awarded maintenance under Section 125 CRPC from her husband. After that, she filed a criminal case under Section 498, 307 IPC, and husband got arrested. Wife didn't help her husband to get bail, nor she came forward to become a surety for a legally wedded husband. Does her act come under the cruelty for the divorce purposes?
It depends on the circumstances. Depends on what circumstances she had to ask, because these are all situations, as I told you, you cannot take one incident as such and then decide a case. Why is there? What are the reasons that she has moved the court under Section 125 CRPC? Under Section 125 CRPC, the reason that a woman or a man can seek for maintenance is there has been separation between them for no reasonable cause. If the court has granted, that means there has been reasonable cause for separation. As granted maintenance means there has been reasonable cause for separation between the spouses. If that be so, then she can use it by saying that these are the reasons why I did not go forward to take bail under the 498A petition is given by she is charged under 498A. She's the de facto complainant. If she becomes the de facto complainant, why should she take steps to get him on bail also? That's a very contradictory situation. If he has been arrested under 498A on the basis of a complaint preferred by her, why should the de facto complainant herself go and get him enlarged on bail?
Meanwhile, Justice Pius Kuriakose has written on the YouTube, best wishes, dear Parvati, for an illuminating session.
Thank you, sir. He has always been my mentor.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, sir.
This is by Yamni, how to prove mental and emotional cruelty.
This is exactly what I have been speaking for more than 1.5 hours. That is, it is very difficult. It is very difficult. You'll have to plead, and you'll have to say that, depends on how it has been, how you have been able to present your case before the courts. Depends on many aspects. Depends on how the court finds it also, because it's very difficult to prove emotional cruelty. That is why I gave you instances. If you have a strange instance of being subjected to cruelty, you can highlight that. With the help of the decisions, you can prove. Proving might be difficult, but you can plead. And if you have got corroborative evidence, or like if a person is emotionally unavailable, if your spouse is emotionally unavailable to you, you can bring in evidence to show that this person is selectively emotionally unavailable. He is actually he's fine with others. He's very, very comfortable with his family and his friends. But when it comes to me, he's totally negative, or rather he just keeps away from me. So for that, he should be able to bring people to depose before the court of law that he's a person like that. If it forms a part of his character, then it's difficult for you to prove emotional abuse. Because if people say this man is an introvert, he's generally like that, then of course you might not be comfortable with him. Then of course, again, then you can ask for incompatibility. It amounts to emotional cruelty towards you, that this person's character is like that. So of course you can always plead that.
Husband wants divorce, but wife is not willing to divorce, saying that she has kids. Should wife show any reasons or grounds for not wanting divorce and save her matrimonial life?
In most cases, what we find is the wife is the one of the spouses. They will say, it's like wreaking vengeance. Now, they might not be actually in good terms at all, but the feeling that the other spouse might get remarried, or let him not have that kind of peace of mind. So that is one reason why normally they don't rather go in for a mutual consent petition. Now mutual consent petitions are available among Hindus, among Christians also, but still you find even Muslim marriages, there is something called Mubarak, which is being encouraged by courts of law, so that there are no much issues between the parties. They don't have to wash linen in the public, dirty linen in the public. So that's one reason why the courts encourage mutual consent matters. But there are issues where there are cases where the women do not want to give divorce, or the husbands do not want to give divorce, just in order to wreak vengeance. So unless they are able to give reasons and say that for such and such reasons we do not want to go in for a divorce, if that be so, what the courts do is they are normally attempt to give, if the courts find that actually they are genuine, they send them for mediation, they send them for counseling, and still if and most of the cases, once after the mediation and counseling, they come to ground reality. The spouses who don't want to, who don't want to go in for a divorce, they come to ground reality, and if they're genuine, they accept the reality and then go for a mutual consent. But just in order to wreak vengeance, if they give some reasons, I'm sure the courts are all agile enough to understand whether the reasons given by the spouses are proper or not, or rather genuine or not.
The questions are pouring in, but we will take only the last question. The question is on the YouTube. It says the wife is continuously abusing and threatens that she will commit a suicide, and she will also impose a case of dowry. What is the situation in this case? What can be done?
Yes, there are cases. 1991 Supreme Court, I've given all the decisions here. Continuous threatening to commit suicide is a ground for cruelty. If you are able to prove that it's a false case, that like she unnecessarily threatens you to commit suicide, threatens the husband, saying that I'll commit suicide, I'll see to it that your family and you are behind the bars, it is a matter of mental cruelty. It's always, I've given you instances, and it's something which I've taken in the class also.
Yeah. So thank you, Parvati ma'am. We had quite an illuminating session. And those who have been connected with us, on Friday, we will be having sessions with Justice V. Ramkumar, the part 8 on the charge and discharge, section 219 and 220 of CRPC. Kindly do stay connected with us. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe, stay blessed. Namaskar.